Jai Hind everyone. So dear students, this is the fourth period of economics and the chapter is sectors of Indian economy. Dear students, we have discussed lots of topics in this chapter. In previous period, we discussed about how employment can be created. As we saw in last period that there are many sectors where job or employment can be created. Education sector, 20 lakhs job can be created in education sector alone. Even in health sector, lakhs of jobs can be created. Then we discussed that if tourism as a sector will be improved, then 35 lakhs jobs can be created every year. So there are many measures, many steps which are taken by the government to give employment to more and more people. We discussed about right to work. We discussed about NREGA 2005, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. Then we discussed on the basis of working conditions, sectors are divided into organized and unorganized sector. We discussed that what is the condition of workers in organized and in unorganized sector. So if workers are working in organized sector, they are enjoying security, high wages, secure employment, many benefits which are set by the government and many more. Even if they retire, they get pension. But what about unorganized sector? So workers in unorganized sector, actually they are exploited. Their job is not secure, wages are low, very low, they don't have any benefit, they don't get appointment later, or even they don't have any medical benefit, paid leave and many more. So students, there is need to protect workers which are working in unorganized sector. Even today we will discuss about sectors classified on the basis of ownership, that is public and private sector. So dear students, let's start topics of sectors of Indian economy today. So this is period number 4, sectors of Indian economy. The main question is, dear students, as I explained just now, how to protect workers in the unorganized sector. Because workers in unorganized sector, they are exploited by the employer. They are not getting any benefit. Their job is not secure, working hours are very long, they don't get overtime, they don't get pension after retirement and many more. So So dear students, the organized sector offers jobs that are the most sought after. Everyone wants to work in organized sector. But there is one problem. The employment opportunities in the organized sector have been expanding very slow. Means jobs are not created on large scale to meet the demand. It is also common to find many organized sector enterprises in the unorganized sector. They work as unorganized sector. What they do? They adopt such strategies to evade taxes and refuse to follow laws that protect laborers. They adopt many strategies to evade taxes, to refuse to follow laws that are very important for laborers, which protect laborers. So as a result, a large number of workers are forced to enter the unorganized sector. And as you know that in unorganized sector, salary is very low, which is irregular also. So in unorganized sector, salary is low and irregular. They are often exploited and not paid a fair wage. Their earnings are low and not regular. The jobs are not secure and have no other benefits. So mainly workers in unorganized sector are exploited. They don't get a fair wage. Earnings are very low. That is low and even not regular. Jobs are not secure. They don't have any other benefits. Now, so dear students, since the 1990s, it is also common to see a large number of workers losing their jobs in the organized sector. Many workers, they lose their jobs in organized sector. And what is the disadvantage of this situation? Now many workers are forced to take up jobs in the unorganized sector, where income or earning is very low. So besides the need for more work, there is also a need for protection and support of the workers. They need more work. Yes, government has to provide them more work, but they need protection also. They need support also, and mainly in unorganized sector. So how many workers working in unorganized sector? They need protection and support. They need more work. They need that government should be more careful regarding the workers who are working in this sector where they are exploited. Now the question is, who are these workers? Who are these vulnerable people who need protection? So, dear students, in rural areas, first I am talking about rural areas. So, in the rural areas, the unorganized sector mostly comprises of, means who are who need to protect, who are working in unorganized sector. So in rural areas, they are landless agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers and artisans. Artisans like such as weavers, blacksmiths, carpenters and goldsmiths. These are the laborers who need protection. Nearly 80% of rural households in India are in small and marginal farmer category. 80% of rural households in India. They are termed as small and marginal farmer category. And they need support. These farmers need to be supported through adequate facility for timely delivery of seeds, agricultural inputs, credit, storage facilities and marketing outlets. And it will improve the condition of farmers. One more time I am repeating, these farmers need to be supported through adequate facility for timely delivery of seeds, agricultural inputs, credit, storage, facilities and marketing outlet. So if these facilities will be given, they will not be exploited and their condition will be improved. It was about for rural areas. Now what about urban areas? So dear students, in urban areas, in cities and metro cities, unorganized sector comprises mainly of workers in small scale industry, casual workers in construction, trade and transport, etc. And those who work as street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, rag pickers, etc. So dear students, if we are talking about the urban areas, the workers who work in unorganized sector are workers in small scale industry, casual workers in construction, trade and transport, etc. And those who work as street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, rag pickers, etc. They are the workers who works in unorganized sector in urban areas. Small scale industry also needs government's support for procuring raw material and marketing of output. Dear students, I am repeating it one more time, that small scale industry needs government's support. Why it needs government support? For procuring raw material and marketing of output. So the casual workers, where they are in rural area or where they are in urban areas, need to be protected. So casual workers need protection from the government. Now, we also find that majority of workers from scheduled castes, tribes and backward communities find themselves in the unorganized sector. means how many are working in unorganized sector, the proportion of scheduled caste and tribes and even backward community is large. Besides getting the irregular and low paid work, these workers also face social discrimination. Means their job is irregular, job is not regular, wages are very low. These are the problems which they are facing. But they also face social discrimination. They are discriminated by other castes at their workplace. So protection and support to the unorganized sector workers is very necessary for India's economic and social development. Dear students, you try to understand. If India has to improve, India has to develop economically and socially, then the workers which are working in unorganized sector should be protected. There are many workers in India who are working in unorganized sector. Their condition is very bad. Their level of living, standard of living is very low. And even they are unable to get basic necessities for their family, unable to get. So, it is the duty of government to protect the workers which are working in unorganized sector. Now, dear students, the last topic of the chapter is sectors in terms of ownership. Means, who is the owner? In terms of that condition, sectors are divided into two: public sector and private sector. So now we will discuss about public sector and private sector. And remember it, this sector is classifying on the basis of ownership. Who is the owner? So, dear students, another way of classifying economic activities into sectors could be on the basis of who owns assets and is responsible for the delivery of services. Means, who is the owner of assets and who is responsible for the delivery of services. So, in the public sector, the government owns most of the assets and provides all the services. Means, in public sector, who is the owner? The government is the owner. So the government owns most of the assets and provides all the services. That sector is known as public sector. Clear? And examples are many. Railways or post office. It is an example of the public sector. Even BSNL, MTNL and many more. So the sector which is owned by the government is known as the public sector. And examples are post offices, railways, BSNL, MTNL and many more like BHEL, BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. So if the owner is government, then the sector will be public sector. Now, what about the private sector? So in the private sector, ownership of assets and delivery of services is in the hands of private individuals or companies. So in the private sector condition, who is the owner? Any individual or group of individuals or any company. They are the owner, and that is private sector. And there are many examples. Companies like Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, commonly known as TISCO, Reliance Industries. These are privately owned and comes under private sector. So the big and main difference between public sector and private sector is, in the public sector, the owner is government. Government owns most of the assets and provides all the services. While in private sector, private individuals or companies owns most of the assets and responsible for all the services. So it was public sector and private sector. So dear students, if we are talking about private sector, so activities in the private sector are guided by the motive to earn profit. Or you can say that the main motive of private sector is to earn more and more profits. So what is the main motive of public sector? So dear students, the main motive of public sector is for public welfare, to provide services to the people. Its main motive is not to earn more and more profits. It works for public welfare. It provides public services. So that is also main difference. The main motive of private sector is to earn more and more profit. And the main motive of public sector is to service to the people for public welfare. So to get such services, we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. If we want to use services from private sector, we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. As I told, the purpose of the public sector is not just to earn profits. You know what is the income source of governments? So governments raise money through taxes and other ways to meet expenses on the services rendered by it. Many services are provided by the government. There are many expenses. So to meet this, government raise taxes. Government take taxes. Modern day governments spend on a whole range of activities. This is the expense of government, and it is spent on a whole range of activities. What are these activities? Why do governments spend on such activities? Let's find out. Dear students, there are many things, or there are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. We try to understand. There are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. Try to understand. I am giving you one example. Providing or supply of electricity. It is the need of all. It is the need of whole society. So if the supply, the power of supply of electricity will go to any private firm, the cost, or you can say the electricity charge will be very high, because their main motive is to earn profit. But this sector is under control of government, and you know, government is supplying electricity at less than their cost. What cost is there, government provide this at lower than the cost. And why? Because the main motive of government or public sector is to provide services. They are working for public welfare. Even there is one more example, LPG. Everyone is having LPG cylinder. And you know, government is providing, what cost government is giving to us, on which rate government is giving to us, that is much less than its cost. Suppose if the supply of LPG will go to private hand, will go to private company, then the price of that LPG cylinder will be very high, because they have to earn profit. That's why it is under control of government, and government is providing these at very negligible cost, very reasonable cost. So there are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. Why? Some of these need spending large sums of money, which is beyond the capacity of the private sector. There are many works which need large sums of money and which is beyond the capacity of the private sector. Also, collecting money from thousands of people who use these facilities is very tough. It is not easy. Even if they do provide these things, they would charge a high rate for their use, as I explained just now, in the case of supply of electricity, in case of supply of LPG cylinder. There are many examples. Examples are construction of roads, bridges, railways, harbors, generating electricity, providing irrigation through dams, etc. These are few examples which is under control of government. And why it is under control of government? Suppose roads are to be constructed in all over India. So try to understand, a large sums of money will be needed, and it will be beyond the capacity of many private firms. Same for bridges also, same for railways also. So these are very important services. So governments have to undertake such heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. Heavy spending, which is beyond the limit of private sector. That's why government undertake this. And government also ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. After that, There are some activities which the government has to support. There are some activities which need government support. Look, the private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. And that is very true. If government will not encourage, then private sector may not continue their production or business. I am giving you one example, as I have already given. Selling electricity at the cost of generation. Try to understand. Selling electricity at the cost of generation may push up the costs of production of goods in many industries. Means, what is the cost of electricity generation? If government will provide electricity at the same cost, then it may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries. So many units, especially small scale units, might have to shut down. So government here steps in by producing and supplying electricity at rates which these industries can afford. Dear students, it is the duty of government to supply them electricity at reasonable cost, at which rate where industries can afford. Then only they will continue their work, they will continue their business. And government has to bear part of the cost. What is the loss in the supplying of electricity that government has to bear? At the same time, if government is providing these facilities to the people, what is the loss that will be bear by the government? So dear students, there is one more example. Similarly, the government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers. At which price? Fair price. The government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price. This it stores in its godowns and sells at a lower price to consumers through ration shops. You try to understand what I am saying. In class 9, there was one chapter, and the chapter was food security. In that chapter, I explained about what is fair price, what is minimum support price. So, government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price, at a good price from the farmers. Then what government does? Government stores in its godowns and then sells at a lower price to consumers through ration shops. At the same, the government has to bear some of the cost. So in this way, the government supports both farmers and consumers. How it supports farmers? When government purchases wheat and rice at a fair price, at a good price, it is the support for farmers. And when government sells these commodities like wheat and rice at a lower price than its purchase to the people, then government supports consumers. Government supports its poorer citizens. So dear students, these are the work which is done by government. There are a large number of activities which are the primary responsibility of the government, and the government must spend on these. There are large number of activities which is the primary responsibility of the government, and government must have to spend. What are these? Providing health and education facilities for all is one example. Dear students, it is the duty of government to provide health facilities and to provide educational facilities. That's why there are many government schools, government colleges, there are many government health centers where at negligible cost people are treated or they get education. We have discussed some of these issues in the first chapter even, that was development. So running proper schools and providing quality education, particularly elementary education, is the duty of government. It is the duty of government to provide educational facilities, running proper schools, providing quality education. And India's size of illiterate population is one of the largest in the world. In that case, this duty is very important of government to make literate most of the people. And as you know that if India will be 100% literate country, then economically, socially, it will be developed country. So dear students, there are many things where government has to work a lot. Similarly, we know that nearly half of the India's children are malnourished and a quarter of them are critically ill. It shows the health facilities or health condition of children of India. Half of the Indian children are malnourished. Quarter of them are critically ill. We have read about infant mortality rates. Students, you are familiar with infant mortality rates. I have introduced this term in first chapter, which was development. So the infant mortality rate of Odisha, which is 53, or Madhya Pradesh, which is 56, is higher than some of the poorest regions of the world. It means health facilities are not proper in India. That's why infant mortality rate in states like Odisha and Madhya Pradesh are very high. So government has to improve educational facilities. Government has to improve health facilities. Government also needs to pay attention to aspects of human development, such as availability of safe drinking water, housing facilities for the poor, and food and nutrition. Dear students, there are crores of people in India which are not getting safe drinking water. They don't have housing facilities. They don't have proper food. They don't have nutritious food. So government has to work a lot in this situation and in this condition. It is also the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and most ignored regions of the country through increased spending in such areas. It is the duty of government to take care of the poorest and most ignored regions of the country. In India, there are many people who are very poor. They are termed as poorest. And there are many regions which are ignored. So government has to spend a lot in those areas. So it was all about public sector and private sector. It was all about how government can change the situation, how government has to work a lot. So dear students, in this chapter we discussed many topics. Mainly we discussed about how sectors are classified. One more time, I am repeating it quickly. So on the basis of economic activities, sectors are divided into three: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. On the basis of working conditions, on the basis of delivery of goods and services, sectors are divided into two: organized sector and unorganized sector. So on the basis of working condition, sectors are divided into organized sector and unorganized sector. Now on the basis of ownership, who is the owner? Sectors are divided into two: public sector and private sector. Then we discussed that which sector is most important in terms of employment, in terms of total production. We also discussed about how employment can be created, and I have given many examples through this chapter. We also discussed that what government can do to improve educational facilities, to improve health facilities. So students, please read all the topics very carefully. This is very important chapter to understand the different aspects of sectors. So that's all for this chapter. In next period, we will start a new chapter which is money and banking, money and credit. Till then, have a nice day. Thank you very much.